Hello, welcome back to the press box. Ellie has unfortunately emerged from the gallery, which is not something that will happen again, I'm sure, but we've got to have it sometimes. We're going to talk about the F1 season, with it being a few days away. We've got a lot to talk about. Hamilton at Ferrari 6, what they're called, rookies as well. But we'll start with your predictions. So I've got 4 categories that I've asked you two to predict. Connors came dressed as well for F1, so must have known this was coming. Who do you think will win the Drivers' Championship this year?
No, Verstappen.
Predictions.
Verstappen.
Not going to stick your nose out there and be bold and say something else?
I'm going to be bold.
Well, I
Say
can, but I
Lando.
think it should be
Lando!
wrong. Yeah, I think it would just be wrong,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, that's the people's choice, isn't it? Surely.
I really want it to be Lando. But
Are you going with your head or your heart though, there, Ellie?
That's all you need
Well-
to know.
both. But I kind of have a feeling that Oscar will do too good that he'll take points away from Lando.
Oscar Piastri.
Piastri, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I think
You don't know them.
Piastri. I'm first name basis with them.
You're not. Let's not.
I
let's not
think,
lie.
Never even been to one.
I think
Is she
Piastri.
not?
No.
No, it's Formula E, not Formula 1. I've seen Kimi Antonelli.
So you've not been to a Liverpool men's home game, and you've not been to an F1 race.
They've been in the Arsenal
I've
end,
been to
been in the Fulham
Silverstone,
end.
and I've seen an F1 track at Silverstone.
Or I've done a
Seen
stadium
on
tour.
F1 on track. Anyways, I think Oscar Piastri would take points away from Lando Norris because he's
in the
really
way that Lawson just
competitive.
won't for Red Bull.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so I'm
yeah.
kind of a bit scared saying Lando because I don't know if he can because
Yeah.
Oscar's too
Do you
competitive.
think McLaren, if they're in a position to, do you think they'd be able to prioritise Lando, or do you think they've not got that in them?
They did this season. They
Yeah.
they did that sometimes, and I feel like Oscar was okay with it because he knew it was towards the end of the season, and Lando was the only one who could have caught Max.
There's an important point in that though, because Lando had already got himself so far ahead. If they
Yeah.
do that, then maybe they can get away with it this year. But remember, like there's whole
they're
new
closer.
regulations next year.
Yeah.
All of this year, it always happens. This year is about preparing for next year,
Yeah.
right? So if they alienate Piastri in that way, he will just go.
Yeah, that's what
Because
I'm
he's not. He's
concerned
too
about.
good. He's not. It's probably not a world championship driver yet. But if that is the fastest car on the grid, he's at least good enough to challenge.
Yeah. So do you think McLaren will be the fastest car? Like constructors, you say both say McLaren.
Yeah,
Yeah,
constructors
yeah, I
McLaren.
think so. Yeah, because they're the only team I think have got two outstanding
Very
drivers.
competitive
Yeah.
drivers.
Not Ferrari.
I think Ferrari will be up there
But it's
more
the
so
car.
than
It
recently.
could do, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm still not convinced about Hamilton, to be honest. I think he'll
Yeah.
do okay. He'll get points and he'll be as good as Sainz was.
Yeah, but nothing.
Yeah,
He won't like get anywhere near to winning the championship.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay. So constructors we've covered. Surprise package then. So I asked you to do a surprise package and an underachiever. I don't know if you want to go for a team or a driver. But if we go
I
for
did
a surprise
drivers
package.
for mine.
Yeah, I did drive as well, but I do
Yeah.
actually have obviously team as well. But I think we probably would say the same.
Yeah, I mean, off testing data would be Williams, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
I think
but
Williams are going to be up there this year. Obviously not fighting for the constructors, but definitely a lot better than they were last
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Do you think Sainz will contribute to that?
100%.
Yes,
That experience
yeah.
is crazy.
he's a race winner as well.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
And I think him and Albon have a good partnership already. Like they just seem to get on so well.
Yeah, and it's two drivers that have been like they've both had a lot of different teammates, haven't they? Like, they've been there,
And
done
it's
that.
Val's second year there now.
Yeah.
Or third. So obviously he was learning a lot last year, but now he's in his second year.
A
Do
bit
you
more
think-
clinical, a bit more ruthless if you need to be. Yeah, like sacrifice one
So
car for the other.
how much
sort
of a
thing.
surprise do you think? What, fifth, sixth?
Yeah, about 56.
Yeah, something like that. I think they could be best of the
Somewhere.
A
rest.
few
Yeah.
top fives maybe.
Could do,
They
yeah.
won't be up there with like Red Bull, Mercedes.
There's always
Ferrari,
those
but-
crazy races every year where like sort of 4 of the top 6
Crash
don't
out
finish or
and-
something. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you can see a podium or something like that. I think
I'd
maybe
love to see
one
an
or two.
Albon or a
Yeah,
Sainz
yeah, they
podium.
deserve it. I think for think about like they had barely any money on the verge of collapsing. Now they are with a.
Yeah.
More on Sainz. I
Competitive
mean,
car.
do you think he's been unfairly treated and looked over by the bigger teams in F1?
It's hard to
It's
say.
hard, yeah.
I mean, it was always going to be like with Ferrari. I don't think they did anything wrong. Leclerc
Yeah.
is their he's their
Future,
driver,
yeah.
and if Hamilton's available, you have to take him, right?
Yeah.
So they haven't done anything wrong there. But I was surprised. Like I think both Red Bull and Mercedes
Could have.
could have. Yeah,
I think
you
it
know,
was
he's-
only
he's
really
quite good.
Mercedes that was the other option because at that point Red Bull had already signed Perez to another contract.
Mm-hmm.
By the
They binned
time
him off though.
by the time Sainz was available, Red Bull weren't, and when Red Bull were available, Sainz had already signed with Williams.
Yeah.
So Red Bull just should have just sucked it up and been like, well, yeah, we'll sack Perez and get Sainz.
Yeah.
Then it was too late for them. Then they had to get Lawson instead when they much would have preferred Sainz.
So with, as you mentioned, the upcoming change next year, do you think Antonelli at Mercedes, Lawson at Red Bull, do you think they're investments for the future rather than next year? Or
I
this
think
coming
Lawson
year?
is because Red Bull have nothing to lose. I don't.
Yeah.
Because my surprise package I for Yuki Tsunoda
Okay.
because I still don't understand. Like we've spoken about this a lot. I still don't understand how Lawson's got that seat because he's had maybe, what is it, like 10 Formula 1 races?
This is where we always fight.
Tsunoda's had years. He beat Lawson over both seasons that they had, like, you know, when they were in the same car. He beat Ricciardo when they were in the same car. I don't see, like, that. I haven't seen enough from Lawson to warrant putting him. Like, obviously, if Lawson had come in and been brilliant straight away, he has to go in the car, because F1 is not about being fair. There's 20 in the world. You can't be fair. But I don't think there's enough there to say that he should be in the car ahead of Tsunoda.
Yeah.
If Tsunoda responds to that in the right way, and if he does, you know, like Perez when it was going badly for him last year, he was losing to the sister team. I think we could see the same with Lawson, because I don't rate him, to be
I
honest.
kind of disagree. I think
The arms are folded there.
I think I do like Yuki. He's a lovely guy and he's a good driver. He definitely deserves to be an F1. But at Red Bull, obviously, I think if Lawson doesn't do well, then Yuki 100% deserves it. But I do think Lawson did deserve the chance over Yuki, just because he'd only had 10 races or 11 races in an F1 car, and he's already like at a similar level to Yuki. Maybe Yuki's a little bit better, but Yuki's been here for years, like 5 years. Lawson's had 10 races. They shouldn't be anywhere near at the same level.
Yeah, I guess, but I think with Tsunoda as well, the other thing, he's a bit of a nutcase, and I think that's good.
I don't think Red Bull want that.
I think you need that in Formula 1, though, because I think the more mellow Verstappen becomes, the more crazy you want your other driver to be. Like, if you look at all the other teams, like Leclerc has got that hot streak in him if you need it. Piastri's done ridiculous things before. Antonelli's a wild card. Red Bull don't have that. You know exactly what you're going to get from Red Bull. You're going to get a pace setter with Verstappen, and then you're going to get Lawson, who's just a bonus, whatever else they can fish out of it.
I just think this season's going to be incredible with like 6 rookies on the grid. It's ridiculous.
Right, underachiever then. This isn't the one you were arguing about, was it?
No, it's not. We'll say, I'm pretty sure we'll end up saying different things, but it's not.
I think my underachiever is quite surprising. I'm going to say Esteban Ocon, because at Haas, him and Ollie are both new to the team this year at Haas. So I think people obviously...
They're not strangers to that, though, are they?
No, but I think people are expecting Ocon to do better because he's got more experience and it's Ollie's first season.
Be the team leader.
But yeah, I don't think he will. I don't think he'll step up and be that team leader. I genuinely think Ollie could do better than him this season. Yeah. So that's my underachiever, Esteban Ocon.
I think it'll be one of the 2 McLarens, because I don't think you can have 2 number 1s. Yeah. And that's a problem that they've created for themselves, because I think Piastri is too good to just sit. He's not quite as good as Norris. Yeah. But I think he's too good at the moment just to sit there. If they say right from the off, from race 3, for example, if Norris does well in the first 2, right, that's it, Lando for the championship, then I think that's awful. And then either Norris gets frustrated that his team aren't handing him the points, or Piastri gets frustrated that he has to hand over the point. I think it's too...
What do you think's the outcome then of it?
I mean, they could win a drivers' championship if one of them is outstanding, but they would have to do the kind of thing Verstappen can, because like what Ellie said, if McLaren are swapping and changing every week, they give point and they take points off each other as well. Yeah. So if Verstappen's coming third consistently to 2 McLarens, when Verstappen does win those races, he's clearing both of them. So he's beaten, he's beaten 2 rivals. But I think if you've got, in the ideal situation, like Hamilton did it for years with Bottas. Hamilton was always naturally faster than Bottas. There was no debate about that. So they used Bottas as sort of like a backstop, essentially, to slow them down, give Hamilton the free air so he can get through. But Piastri is too good to do that.
I think he was okay with doing that this season, but next season I think he wants to fight
himself. Well, the key thing as well with Piastri, by the time they made those decisions, that papaya rule thing, Lando was already a good way ahead, right? So to go to Piastri and say, okay, look, we're halfway through the season, Lando is 80 points ahead of you, whatever it was. Fair enough. But even doing that, Piastri still got more points than Lando did in the last half of the season. So it makes it, it makes you think. Like, I'm not saying that Piastri is better than Norris. I don't think Norris is definitely the slightly better driver, but he can.
And I love Lando's my favourite driver, but I still genuinely think Oscar could do better.
Because Piastri's not been in it for very long, and he had to get used to a very quick car very quickly, and he did. He's been fantastic. He won a race before Norris did.
He's been the one that everyone's kept the eye on for years. Everyone's expected him to do well, and he's done well.
And that's the thing. McLaren have got they've done a brilliant job to be able to get control of him, while they've also got another great driver with Norris. But actually, that might not be the best thing to do.
So just before we go, then we're going to talk about Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. I don't think we can't really. Finally, after a year after it was announced it's happened, what are your thoughts on how it might go? Maybe not the fairy tale that we all thought it might be.
It might not be, but again, looking ahead at new regulations, I don't just keep saying the same thing, but if you've got a driver with that much experience who will take you through not only the last year with getting the best out of this car that you know inside out, but also helping you to develop a new car. It's really hard to look at a blueprint given to you by the FIA and say, okay, this is how we're going to make the fastest car under new regulations. But it's the drivers like Hamilton and Alonso who've got all that experience, being able to have Hamilton help you build your 26 car, even if 25 is a write-off, that alone is worth it. And he's still a good driver, like if Ferrari have the fastest car of a weekend, he's going to win some races. After testing it, maybe it doesn't look that likely that they will, but he's definitely enough to, he's not just going to be a second driver to Leclerc, which, while like we said with McLaren, that wouldn't work. But if you're not fighting for a championship, it doesn't matter. Who
do you think will finish more points?
Well, the two Ferrari drivers.
That's hard.
The thing is, when Leclerc's in a situation where he's not going to win, he will take a huge risk that might sacrifice third or fourth to try and win. I think Hamilton has learned not to do that, and he's been a little bit more. So it's so hard to call because I think Leclerc will win more races, but Hamilton probably have higher average position. So it's very hard to say. If I had to push, I'd probably say Leclerc, just because because these is like the fourth year of this generation of car or something like that. So Leclerc has basically been driving this Ferrari for 3-4 years. So I would say if you
I think I would say the same.
And if there's a position where they have to, I know it's probably not going to happen, but if there's a position where Ferrari have to prioritise one of them, do you think it will undoubtedly be Leclerc? Or do you think
it's hard to say that to a 7-time champion, isn't it? Yeah.
Like, there's two really incredible drivers.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell that early on in the season. They've just got to let them fight, and then maybe later on in the season, if one's further ahead than the other, then start switching. But you can't from the get-go say, right, this is our number one driver, because what if that's Leclerc and then Hamilton goes and wins the first 3 races?
I do think with Ferrari as well, there was an element of sandbagging in testing where they're just not letting on what they can do, because they're always they like to have a trick up their sleeves, don't they? There's always got to be something. So maybe there is a kind of, I don't know, maybe there's a resolution to that already between the two of them. But they've both been pretty good at handling. Obviously, Hamilton and Rosberg was a bit of a tetchy one, but that was that was 10 years ago, wasn't it? Hamilton was a much younger man then, so I think they'd be able to handle it a little better. Just because with Leclerc, he knows that his future with Ferrari is secure. With Hamilton, he knows that he's won 7 world titles. So there's both a little bit of security there that if they don't win a world championship, it's not a disaster.
Yeah.
With Norris and Piastri, they both know that probably the best chance they've got is these next couple of years because of the position they're in on the
about
grid.
10 minutes ago, as of recording, it was just announced that Cadillac are going to be on the grid next season as the 11th team.
Yeah.
So we're going to get 2 more drivers on the grid next season. I just want to ask, who do you think those 2 drivers should be? Not who they will be, but who would you like to see in F1?
I mean, it will probably change again a lot, the grid next year anyway, so there may be drivers now who aren't. But if we're thinking literally 2 drivers who are not on the grid now, who should, I think, I don't know, it's not an easy question. I think Zhou was passed over. I think he was really unlucky not to get a seat, and I know a lot of teams are willing to, because as we said, because 25 is basically a setup year for 26, I think that's why we see so many rookies, because they're willing to gamble. But I do think Zhou was really hard done by, especially Bortoleto going into literally the same team. They've just swapped a rookie for someone who's had some really good points finishes. And aside from that, I think you kind of need a wild card, don't you? Whether it's someone who, Ollie Byrne has basically got his seat this year off of how well he did as a substitute last year. So I think you need to kind of leave it open for that. So maybe someone like Colapinto, for example, who's done a job like that. But the only driver who I think is not on the grid now who should be is Zhou.
Really? Over Colapinto?
Yeah, I think so, because Colapinto did have, he had some great finishes and he had a great bit of flair, but it's almost it's kind of like a football analogy, but you imagine a young player comes up, does really well for 3 games, and then all the other teams work out what they need to do, they know he's going to be aggressive. So I think a lot of the time, if you keep being that aggressive, sometimes you're going to be rewarded, but he made a lot of mistakes as well. He had quite a lot of DNA, and Williams had that ridiculous streak of crashes, and none of them were mechanical failures, bear in mind. It was all, they're all crashes. So I think he's a good driver, but I think Zhou is a little bit more, he's got more of a level head.
Is there anyone you want to see, Ellie?
I think Ricciardo is one that everyone wants back. Everyone loves him. He's not going to be fighting for podiums, but I don't think Cadillac want that. So actually having that experienced driver who could actually just help them progress and grow is probably what they need, actually. Ricciardo is probably what they need. And I love Vettel, but I don't think he'll come back as a driver. But I would love to see him come back in some kind of engineering role or something like that. Just having that experience in the team will be incredible.
They've got a whole pit wall to fill, haven't they?
Yeah. And then a rookie of some kind, whether that be Colapinto. I don't think it should be Zhou. I'm thinking maybe Drugovic or Porsche or even Victor Martins, just one of the young F2 or ex-F2 boys alongside an experienced driver. So maybe Ricciardo and Colapinto or Ricciardo and Drugovic. That's what I would go with.
Okay, I think they should get Kimi Räikkönen back off retirement. That would be my preference. But anyway, thank you for joining us, guys, and thanks, Luca, as well. We'll be back with another podcast next week. Make sure you hit like on the video, hit subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when we upload. We'll be back next week, and have a good week. Goodbye.